For 7 years, Harper Quinn believed she was invisible. She never knew the most powerful man in New York had been watching. Not stalking, not controlling, protecting. And after years of silence, he was finally about to tell her why. Harper Quinn had built her life around silence. At 28, she worked as an architectural restoration specialist in Manhattan, spending her days repairing old mansions, forgotten churches, and historic buildings rich people bought when they wanted to own a piece of the past. She understood broken things better than most people. Cracked marble, faded ceilings, damaged woodwork, fragile beauty that survived only because someone patient refused to let it disappear. Maybe that was why she loved her work. It reminded her that ruined things could still be saved. From the outside, Harper looked calm, focused, and professionally untouchable. She wore soft beige coats, simple black dresses, low heels, and kept her chestnut brown hair tied neatly whenever she worked. Her gray-green eyes rarely revealed emotion. People called her disciplined, mature, controlled. They never knew control was not confidence. It was survival. 7 years earlier, Harper had escaped a life filled with betrayal, fear, and unanswered questions. Her father had died under suspicious financial circumstances. Her mother disappeared from public life soon after. Family friends stopped calling. Doors closed. Money vanished. And Harper learned very quickly that powerful people could destroy a family without ever raising their voice. Since then, she trusted very little, especially men with power. Yet strange things had followed her for years. Danger always seemed to stop just before reaching her. A threatening landlord suddenly withdrew an eviction notice. A man who followed her after work disappeared from the neighborhood. A restoration contract she desperately needed appeared anonymously through a private firm. Medical debt from her mother's old treatment file was mysteriously paid in full. Harper noticed the pattern. She simply couldn't explain it. At first, she called it luck. Then coincidence. Then something else. Something hidden. Something watching from the shadows. Across the city, inside a black glass tower overlooking the East River, Lucian Blackwood knew exactly why those things happened. At 36, Lucian was more than a billionaire businessman. Publicly, he controlled luxury hotels, private security companies, real estate holdings, and shipping networks. Privately, he ruled the Blackwood Empire, one of the most feared syndicate powers in America. Men feared his silence more than another man's anger. He was precise, controlled, dangerous. A king who built power from discipline and loyalty, not noise. And for 7 years, Harper Quinn had been the one name he never allowed his people to forget. Every month, a report arrived on his private desk. Her address, her work contracts, her security risks, her financial stability, her safety. Lucian never interfered directly. He never approached her, never placed himself into her life. He simply made sure the world that had once hurt her never got close enough to finish what it started. To his advisors, it looked like obsession. To Lucian, it was a debt, a promise, and eventually, something far more dangerous. Because somewhere between duty and protection, Harper stopped being a responsibility. She became the person he quietly guarded more carefully than his own empire. That evening, Harper arrived at an abandoned Fifth Avenue townhouse scheduled for restoration. Dust floated through golden evening light. Old portraits lined the walls. The building felt like a memory refusing to die. While cataloging damaged furniture in the attic, she discovered a sealed leather folder hidden behind a cracked wooden panel. Inside were old photographs. Her breath caught. One showed her at 21, standing outside her father's funeral service. She looked pale, lost, traumatized, barely holding herself together. But that wasn't what made her heart stop. In the background, near a black car beneath the rain, stood a tall man in a dark coat. Sharp jawline, cold eyes, unmistakable power. Lucian Blackwood. Harper stared at the date printed on the back. 7 years ago. And suddenly she understood the terrifying truth. The man protecting her had been there from the very beginning. Harper had one question. Why? Why would a man with unlimited power spend years protecting someone who meant nothing to him? The answer terrified even Lucian. The photograph sat on Harper Quinn's desk for 3 straight days. Every time she looked away, her mind pulled her back toward it. Every time she convinced herself she was overreacting, another question appeared. The image was simple. Rain, black umbrellas, her father's funeral, a broken 21-year-old woman standing beside a grave. And in the background stood Lucian Blackwood, watching, waiting, present, 7 years before they officially met. The realization refused to make sense. Harper had spent years rebuilding her life brick by brick after everything collapsed. She survived financial ruin, public humiliation, family secrets, and the emotional scars left behind by people she once trusted. Through all of it, she believed she was alone. Now she wasn't so sure. The more she investigated, the stranger things became. Archived photographs from charity events placed Lucian near locations connected to her life. Security footage from an old restoration project revealed a Blackwood security vehicle parked nearby during a dangerous structural inspection. Records from a failed apartment acquisition showed a company secretly linked to Lucian purchasing the building weeks before residents were forced out. The pattern was impossible to ignore. Lucian Blackwood kept appearing. Not close enough to be obvious. Not distant enough to be coincidence. Every discovery increased her emotional confusion. Fear mixed with curiosity. Suspicion mixed with gratitude. Part of her wanted answers. Another part feared them. Because powerful men never did anything without a reason. And Lucian Blackwood was one of the most powerful men in America. Eventually, Harper stopped investigating documents and decided to investigate the man himself. A private meeting was arranged. The moment she entered Blackwood Tower, she felt the weight of his empire. Everything reflected control. The polished marble floors, the silent security teams, the executives moving through hallways with disciplined precision. Lucian's world operated differently from everyone else's. His empire felt less like a company and more like a kingdom. And he sat at the center of it, the king. When Harper entered his private office overlooking Manhattan, the city seemed smaller beneath him. Sunlight reflected across glass walls while Lucian stood near the windows, hands clasped behind his back. Calm, controlled, dangerously unreadable. Yet when he looked at Harper, something shifted. Only slightly. Enough for her to notice. The conversation began carefully, then quickly became personal. Harper asked about the photograph. Lucian acknowledged it. She asked about the protection. He admitted it. She asked why. Silence followed. Long, heavy, uncomfortable. For the first time, Harper saw something unexpected in his eyes. Conflict. Not fear. Not guilt. Something deeper. Something emotional. Lucian Blackwood looked like a man standing on the edge of a truth he couldn't force himself to reveal. The silence frustrated her. Questions continued piling higher, while answers remained locked away. The mystery deepened. Why protect her? Why remain hidden? Why spend 7 years watching from afar? Lucian could answer all of it, yet he didn't. Because the truth carried consequences. Consequences even he wasn't prepared to face. After the meeting ended, Harper left with more questions than she arrived with. Meanwhile, something dangerous was happening beyond her awareness. Inside the Blackwood Empire, whispers had already begun spreading. Employees noticed her name appearing more frequently. Security teams received special instructions regarding her safety. Advisors watched Lucian closely whenever Harper entered a room. Rumors moved quickly through powerful organizations. Some believed she was part of a secret investigation. Others believed she possessed valuable information. A few suspected something much more personal. Nobody knew the truth, but everyone understood one thing. The king cared. And whenever a king cared, people paid attention. Unfortunately, so did enemies. Across New York, rival syndicates constantly monitored Lucian Blackwood's activities. Every alliance, every investment, every weakness. Information flowed through hidden networks where powerful men traded secrets like currency. Soon Harper Quinn's name appeared in those conversations. At first, nobody recognized it. Then one evening, during a private gathering attended by several influential syndicate leaders, an older man reviewing intelligence reports suddenly froze. His eyes narrowed. His expression darkened. because he recognized the surname. Quinn, not Harper specifically. Her bloodline, her family, a family connected to financial records that disappeared decades ago. Records linked to fortunes, alliances, and secrets many powerful people wanted buried forever. The room grew quiet. Questions immediately followed. Where was she? What did she know? Why was Lucian protecting her? Within hours, investigators were activated. Old archives reopened. Family histories reviewed. Forgotten files pulled from storage. Harper Quinn had unknowingly become valuable, and valuable people attracted danger. Late that night, an urgent intelligence report landed on Lucian's desk. He opened it. Read the first page, then the second. His expression hardened instantly, because a rival syndicate leader had recognized Harper's last name, and for the first time in 7 years, someone else wanted to find her. Harper thought her family was ordinary. She was wrong. The truth had been buried for decades, and people were willing to destroy lives to keep it hidden. The intelligence report changed everything. Until now, Harper Quinn had been a mystery. Now she was a target. The moment a rival syndicate leader recognized her family name, quiet curiosity transformed into active interest. Across New York, hidden networks began searching for information connected to the Quinn bloodline. Old financial records resurfaced. Forgotten archives were reopened. Names that had not been spoken in decades suddenly appeared in confidential discussions between powerful people. And Harper had absolutely no idea why. She sat alone inside her apartment one rainy evening, surrounded by documents collected during her investigation into Lucian Blackwood. The city lights reflected across the window beside her while questions continued multiplying inside her mind. Every answer seemed connected to her family. Every secret pointed backward, toward a past she barely understood. The deeper she looked, the stranger the story became. Her father had never been a wealthy man. At least that was what she believed. He lived modestly, worked quietly, avoided attention. Yet hidden beneath public records existed traces of something much larger. A financial structure, private holdings, offshore accounts, business partnerships connected to organizations that no longer officially existed. The discovery left Harper stunned. Someone had deliberately erased the truth, and they had done it well. Meanwhile, inside Blackwood Tower, Lucian reviewed the same information with growing concern. Certain names appearing in the investigation belonged to powerful syndicates. Others connected directly to old financial empires that vanished years ago. One detail stood above everything else. The Quinn family had once controlled access to an enormous financial network. Not money, information. And information was far more valuable, particularly to powerful men. That realization explained why rival syndicates suddenly cared about Harper. Somewhere inside her family history existed something worth finding, something worth protecting, or stealing. The danger was no longer theoretical. It was moving closer. Over the following days, subtle changes appeared around Harper's life. Unfamiliar vehicles remained parked near work sites longer than necessary. Unknown callers disconnected whenever she answered. Strange inquiries about her professional projects reached clients she barely knew. The pattern felt familiar, like being watched, like being hunted. Fear quietly returned. Not the loud kind, the dangerous kind, the kind that arrived through instincts, through whispers, through unexplained feelings that something wasn't right. Harper hated it, because she had spent years escaping exactly this feeling. Years rebuilding herself after trauma. Years proving she didn't need anyone, especially powerful men, which made Lucian's growing presence complicated. The more danger increased, the more protection appeared. Additional security near project locations. Private transportation arrangements she never requested. Anonymous safety alerts. Invisible shields appearing around her life. Harper recognized where they came from. Lucian Blackwood. Again, the realization frustrated her, because part of her appreciated it, and another part resisted it completely. She refused to become dependent. She refused to become someone who needed saving. Power always carried a cost, and men like Lucian always operated according to rules ordinary people never understood. Yet despite her resistance, she couldn't ignore one truth. Every time fear appeared, safety followed. Every time danger moved closer, protection arrived first. The conflict became emotional, complicated, personal. One evening, Harper finally confronted Lucian inside the private rooftop garden of Blackwood Tower. The city stretched endlessly around them. The wind carried silence between them. For several moments, neither spoke. Then Harper asked a question she could no longer avoid. What exactly was her family hiding? For the first time, Lucian didn't immediately answer. His expression hardened, because the truth was dangerous. Not only for Harper, for everyone connected to her. Eventually, he revealed part of it. Decades earlier, certain influential families helped build a hidden financial consortium operating beneath legitimate businesses. Officially, it never existed. Unofficially, it controlled access to information powerful enough to influence governments, corporations, and syndicates alike. The Quinn family became guardians of key records. Then something went wrong. The consortium fractured. Families disappeared. Documents vanished. People stopped talking. The secret was buried. Until now, Harper listened in stunned silence, heart pounding, because suddenly everything made sense. The attention, the protection, the fear, the reason powerful people wanted her found. She wasn't valuable because of money. She was valuable because of what she might unknowingly inherit. The realization changed everything. Yet the biggest shock arrived 2 days later. A forgotten banking archive, located beneath an old Manhattan institution, completed a routine records review. During the process, employees discovered an inactive safety deposit box. The account had remained untouched for decades. The registered family name immediately triggered alerts. Quinn. A confidential report landed on Lucian's desk before sunrise. His eyes narrowed as he read the details. Because according to the records, the safety deposit box still existed, still active, still waiting, and whatever was hidden inside had remained untouched for over 30 years. For the first time in decades, the Quinn family secret had finally left a trail, and everyone was about to follow it. Harper spent years running from powerful men. Then she found herself living inside the fortress of the most powerful one. And somehow, it felt safe. The discovery of the safety deposit box changed the situation overnight. What had once been a mystery became a race. Not for money, not for influence, for answers. The moment intelligence reports confirmed the existence of the forgotten Quinn family deposit box, rival syndicates accelerated their search. Questions spread through hidden networks. Old names resurfaced. Powerful people suddenly became interested in a woman who had spent years trying to remain invisible. For Harper, the attention felt suffocating. Every unfamiliar face triggered suspicion. Every unexpected phone call raised concerns. Every shadow felt a little too close. The fear wasn't dramatic. It was constant, quiet, persistent. The kind of fear emotionally scarred people understood better than anyone else. Lucian understood it too. That was why, for the first time in 7 years, he stopped protecting Harper from a distance and brought her closer. The Blackwood estate stood nearly an hour outside Manhattan, hidden beyond private forests, gated roads, and acres of protected land. Most people only knew rumors about the property. Some called it a fortress. Others called it a kingdom. Neither description felt exaggerated. When Harper first arrived, she understood why. The estate stretched across rolling hills overlooking private lakes and manicured gardens. Stone pathways wound through centuries-old trees. Elegant architecture blended luxury with security. Hidden cameras monitored every entrance. Security teams moved discreetly through the grounds. Everything reflected power. Everything reflected control. Yet strangely, nothing felt threatening. The place felt peaceful, safe. That realization confused Harper more than anything else. For years, she associated powerful men with danger. Wealth created leverage. Influence created manipulation. Protection always came attached to conditions. Yet Lucian never behaved that way. He offered the estate as a shield. Nothing more. No expectations. No demands. No pressure. A private guest suite overlooking the gardens was prepared for her. The room felt warm rather than extravagant. Large windows allowed sunlight to flood the space each morning. Fresh flowers appeared without explanation. Books somehow matched her interests perfectly. Small details. Thoughtful details. Details that made the estate feel less like a fortress and more like a home. The effect was immediate. For the first time in years, Harper slept through an entire night. No nightmares. No emergency plans. No waking up at every unfamiliar sound. The realization felt emotional, almost overwhelming, because she couldn't remember the last time she felt truly safe. Days turned into weeks. The tension surrounding the safety deposit box remained unresolved, but inside the estate, something unexpected began happening. Healing. Harper slowly lowered walls she spent years building. Not all of them, just enough. The process happened through quiet moments rather than dramatic events. Morning walks through the gardens. Late evenings in the library. Conversations that started with simple topics and gradually became personal. Lucian never pushed, never demanded trust, never forced closeness. He simply remained present, consistent, reliable. The patience affected Harper more than grand gestures ever could. One evening, while rain tapped softly against the estate windows, they found themselves alone in the library. The atmosphere felt calm, comfortable, a rare luxury for two people carrying years of emotional scars. For the first time, Harper spoke honestly about her past. The betrayal, the loneliness, the years spent rebuilding a life that had collapsed without warning. Lucian listened quietly, not as a king, not as the head of an empire, as someone who understood loss. Eventually, pieces of his own story emerged. Years of responsibility, years of sacrifice, years spent carrying an empire while hiding his own wounds. The conversation created something neither expected. Connection, not romance, not yet. Something deeper. Trust, the beginning of loyalty. A safe place built not from walls and security systems, but from understanding. As the days passed, people inside the estate noticed the change. Harper smiled more often. Lucian appeared less isolated. The atmosphere around them softened. Even the empire noticed. Whispers spread quietly among advisors and executives. The king seemed different, more focused, more protective, more human. Meanwhile, Harper began noticing details she previously ignored. How security teams treated her with respect. How staff members genuinely cared about her well-being. How Lucian always seemed aware of potential problems before they appeared. The realization slowly formed. For years, she had been surviving alone. Now she didn't have to. That thought both comforted and frightened her. Because safety required trust, and trust remained dangerous. Then one afternoon, everything changed. While searching for historical property records connected to the Quinn investigation, Harper accidentally accessed a restricted archive room inside the estate. Rows of secured filing cabinets filled the space. Hundreds of folders. Thousands of pages. Curiosity pulled her closer. Then she saw her name. Harper Quinn. One file. Then another. Then dozens more. Heart pounding, she opened the nearest folder. Inside were reports, photographs, security assessments, medical records, work histories, apartment addresses, 7 years of details, 7 years of protection, 7 years of observation. As Harper stared at the overwhelming collection, one terrifying realization settled into her mind. Every file inside the room was about her, and Lucian Blackwood had kept every single one. Lucian Blackwood feared many things. Losing power wasn't one of them. Losing Harper was. The discovery inside the archive room shattered the fragile sense of balance Harper had been building. For several minutes, she stood completely still, surrounded by rows of files carrying her name. Every cabinet contained pieces of her life. Apartment addresses, employment records, medical reports, security assessments, travel histories, even restoration projects she had worked on years earlier. 7 years. 7 years of records. 7 years of protection. 7 years of watching. Her heart pounded as she opened another folder. Then another. And another. The evidence was overwhelming. Lucian Blackwood hadn't simply protected her. He had built an invisible shield around her life. The realization left her shaken, not because she felt threatened, because she didn't know how she was supposed to feel. Anger, gratitude, confusion, fear. Everything collided at once. That evening she confronted him. The meeting took place inside the estate's private study overlooking the gardens. Rain drifted softly beyond the windows while silence filled the room. For the first time since arriving at the estate, Harper wasn't searching for clues. She already had them. Now she wanted the truth. Lucian listened quietly as she placed several files across the desk. Neither pretended anymore. The secrets were exposed. The silence lasted longer than usual. Then Lucian finally began explaining. Not everything, just enough. Years earlier, shortly after her father's death, certain financial investigations connected to powerful syndicates uncovered Harper's name. At the time, she was simply collateral damage caught near something dangerous. Lucian intervened quietly. Initially, it was a practical decision. Protection, risk management, nothing personal. At least that was what he told himself. But years passed, and he kept checking the reports, kept reading updates, kept making sure she remained safe. Eventually, the reports stopped feeling like security briefings. They started feeling personal. Harper listened carefully. Every revelation deepened the mystery, because the protection went far beyond duty. Lucian admitted arranging anonymous legal assistance after one landlord attempted to force her out unfairly. He admitted preventing several predatory business deals from targeting her restoration projects. He admitted quietly helping her mother receive treatment years earlier. The list continued, moment after moment, year after year. Invisible acts she never knew existed. The realization hit harder than expected. Someone had been protecting her during the darkest years of her life. Someone she never even knew was there. For the first time, Harper struggled to maintain emotional control, because every lonely moment she thought she survived completely alone suddenly looked different. Across the room, Lucian watched her reaction carefully. The truth terrified him, not because of the files, because of what they represented. His feelings, the one subject he still couldn't fully explain. Power never frightened him. Danger never frightened him. Losing control never frightened him. Harper Quinn did, because somewhere during those 7 years, she became the exception to every rule he built around his life. The exception to distance. The exception to caution. The exception to logic. And Lucian Blackwood hated having exceptions. Meanwhile, outside the estate, the situation continued worsening. The discovery of the Quinn family connection had triggered growing interest among rival syndicates. Financial investigators disappeared into archives. Private intelligence teams reopened forgotten cases. Old alliances shifted. The closer everyone moved toward the Quinn secret, the more dangerous the situation became. Additional security surrounded the estate. Intelligence reports arrived daily. Threat assessments increased. The atmosphere slowly changed. The feeling of approaching danger settled over everything. Yet strangely, the pressure strengthened something else. Loyalty. Harper began seeing the empire differently. The staff who respected her. The security teams protecting her. The people who trusted Lucian completely. For the first time, she understood why. Loyalty wasn't demanded inside the Blackwood Empire. It was earned, and Lucian had spent years earning it, including hers. The emotional distance between them continued shrinking, not through dramatic moments, through understanding, through trust, through the growing realization that neither wanted the other to leave. The attachment frightened them both, because attachment created vulnerability, and vulnerability created risk. Then the betrayal arrived, quietly, unexpectedly, dangerously. Late one evening, a confidential intelligence briefing reached Lucian's office. At first it appeared routine. Then several details immediately stood out. Unauthorized communications, hidden financial transfers, private security schedules accessed without permission. The source shocked everyone. One of Lucian's oldest allies. A man trusted for years. A man with unrestricted access to the empire. A man nobody suspected. The evidence was undeniable. Someone inside the Blackwood empire had betrayed them. The discovery triggered immediate alarms throughout the estate. Security teams mobilized. Communications channels activated. Yet they were already too late. Because while Lucian reviewed the report, another notification arrived. This one carried only a single sentence. His expression changed instantly. Fear. Real fear. The kind nobody had ever seen on the king's face. Because Harper Quinn was gone, and nobody knew where she was. The entire empire felt it. The king was afraid. And when Lucian Blackwood was afraid, everyone listened. The notification arrived at 11:43 p.m. 3 words. Harper is missing. Nothing else. No explanation. No location. No demands. Just absence. For a brief moment, the world seemed to stop moving. Inside the Blackwood estate, silence spread faster than panic. Security officers exchanged tense glances. Advisors stopped conversations mid-sentence. Phones began ringing across departments that normally operated with military precision. The impossible had happened. Someone had taken Harper Quinn out of the safest place in America. And nobody understood how. Lucian stood motionless inside his office, overlooking the dark estate grounds. The report remained open on his desk, but he had stopped reading it. Because only one thought existed. Harper. For years, he had protected her from a distance. For months, he had protected her from nearby. Now she was gone. The realization hit harder than any business crisis, syndicate threat, or financial war he had ever faced. Across the empire, emergency protocols activated immediately. Private investigators were reassigned. Corporate negotiations were suspended. International calls were canceled. Security resources moved into search operations. The Blackwood Empire stopped functioning as a business organization. It became a rescue operation. Employees noticed the difference instantly. Nothing mattered except finding Harper. The message spread quickly. The king had given a direct order. Find her, no matter the cost. Meanwhile, several hundred miles away, Harper sat inside a secluded mountain lodge overlooking dense forests and endless fog-covered valleys. The location surprised her. There were no locked rooms, no threats, no dramatic confrontations, only silence. The people responsible seemed less interested in controlling her and more interested in keeping her away from something or someone. That detail bothered her because it suggested a larger plan, a hidden conspiracy, a purpose she still couldn't see. Yet Harper refused to surrender emotionally. Fear remained present, but fear no longer controlled her. The woman who once spent years hiding from problems had changed. She observed everything, every conversation, every detail, every inconsistency. She listened carefully and slowly uncovered pieces of the truth. The people surrounding her weren't acting independently. They answered to someone connected to the Quinn family secret. Someone powerful. Someone who believed Harper possessed access to information capable of shifting enormous financial influence. The realization transformed confusion into determination. She was not a victim. She became powerful the moment she stopped waiting for rescue. Back inside New York, Lucian's investigation uncovered something equally disturbing. The betrayal reached deeper than anyone imagined. The trusted ally responsible wasn't motivated by money. He wasn't motivated by revenge. He believed the Quinn family secret belonged to people capable of reshaping entire syndicate structures. For years, he had quietly built relationships outside the empire. For years, he had hidden his true loyalties. Now everything was exposed. The discovery triggered loyalty tests across the organization. Internal investigations expanded. Advisors were scrutinized. Access permissions disappeared overnight. The empire wasn't simply searching for Harper anymore. It was searching for every hidden weakness inside itself. The pressure intensified. Business partners demanded explanations. Investors requested meetings. Several billion-dollar opportunities required immediate decisions. Lucian ignored every one of them. For the first time in his career, the empire came second. Harper came first. The decision shocked everyone. Some questioned it privately. Others understood immediately. because the truth had become impossible to ignore. The king was no longer protecting an obligation. He was protecting someone he couldn't afford to lose. Days later, a breakthrough finally arrived. A financial transaction connected to the betrayal led investigators toward a private property network hidden beneath multiple shell corporations. The trail pointed west, toward the mountains, toward Harper. Lucian personally joined the operation, not because he needed to, because he had to. The journey felt endless. Every hour stretched longer. Every delay sharpened the fear he refused to acknowledge publicly. Yet beneath the calm expression, one reality remained. He was terrified, not of failure, of arriving too late. When the final location was confirmed, the atmosphere changed. Hope returned. For the first time in days, the Empire could breathe again. The mountain lodge appeared exactly where intelligence predicted. Quiet, remote, hidden, and inside stood Harper. Alive, safe. The moment Lucian saw her through the window, something inside him finally relaxed. Weeks of pressure disappeared instantly. For several seconds, neither moved. The distance between them felt strangely emotional, as if both understood something important had changed. Harper immediately noticed it. The way he looked at her, the way relief replaced control, the way years of silence seemed ready to break. Because for the first time since they met, Lucian Blackwood looked prepared to reveal the truth. The truth behind 7 years of protection. The truth behind every sacrifice. The truth behind every file. And the reason he chose Harper Quinn long before she ever knew his name. After 7 years, the silence finally ended, and the truth was more emotional than Harper ever imagined. The mountain lodge felt different after Lucian arrived. The tension that had consumed the past several days slowly disappeared, replaced by something far more powerful. Answers. For 7 years, Harper Quinn had lived beside a mystery she never knew existed. For 7 years, Lucian Blackwood carried a truth he never allowed himself to speak aloud. Now there was nowhere left to hide it. The storm outside covered the mountains in silver fog, while silence settled between them. They sat across from each other inside a private sitting room overlooking endless pine forests. Neither rushed the moment. Both understood its weight. Harper had spent years searching for reasons. Lucian had spent years protecting one. Finally, their paths reached the same destination. The truth. For several moments, Lucian simply looked at her, not as the king of an empire, not as the most feared man in New York, just a man carrying 7 years of unfinished emotions. Then he finally spoke, not about syndicates, not about hidden fortunes, not about the Quinn family secret, about her father. The name immediately changed everything. William Quinn. A man Harper remembered as kind, quiet, and ordinary. A man she believed she fully understood. She was wrong. Years before his death, William Quinn had crossed paths with a much younger Lucian Blackwood during one of the most dangerous periods of Lucian's life. At the time, Lucian was still building his empire. Rivals surrounded him. Trust was rare. Loyalty was even rarer. During a financial investigation that threatened to destroy everything Lucian had built, William Quinn discovered evidence capable of protecting him. Most people would have sold it. Most people would have used it for leverage. William Quinn didn't either. He protected Lucian, quietly, without reward, without recognition, without asking for anything in return. The decision changed the course of Lucian's life. It allowed his empire to survive. It allowed the king to be born. And before they parted ways, Lucian made a promise. If anything ever happened to William Quinn, he would protect his family. At first, it was simply loyalty, a debt, an obligation, a promise between two men. Then William died, and Harper's world collapsed. Lucian remembered standing at the funeral 7 years earlier, watching a young woman trying desperately not to break apart in front of strangers. That was the photograph Harper found. The beginning. The first day, he started keeping his promise. For years afterward, he monitored her safety. Not because he wanted control, not because he wanted power over her life, because loyalty demanded it, protection demanded it, honor demanded it. Yet somewhere during those 7 years, something changed. The reports became personal. The updates mattered. Her victories mattered. Her pain mattered. The distance that once protected him became unbearable. The realization arrived slowly. Then all at once, protection became attachment. Attachment became devotion. And devotion became something he could no longer deny. Love. The truth settled over the room like silence. Harper felt tears gathering before she even realized why. Because for the first time, everything made sense. The protection, the sacrifices, the consistency, the impossible feeling of safety she experienced around a man she should have feared. Lucian had never viewed her as a responsibility. Not for a very long time. The realization touched something deep inside her. For years, she believed she survived alone. She now understood someone had been quietly standing between her and the darkness every step of the way. Not controlling, protecting, not possessing, caring. The difference changed everything. Heart pounding, Harper finally understood something else. She trusted him, completely. The fear that once existed between them disappeared. The wall she spent years building finally collapsed. Not because she became weak, because she became strong enough to stop hiding. She was not a victim. She became powerful the moment she allowed herself to accept safety. For the first time in years, Harper stopped running. And for the first time in years, Lucian stopped carrying the burden alone. The emotional distance vanished. Trust replaced uncertainty. Loyalty replaced doubt. The Blackwood estate no longer felt like a fortress. It felt like a safe place. A future suddenly seemed possible. The Queen and the King finally standing on the same side. The healing arc that began 7 years earlier finally reached its destination. Then the world changed again. A secure communication alert arrived directly from New York. Urgent. Priority level 1. Lucian opened the report. His expression immediately hardened. The atmosphere shifted. Because according to international intelligence sources, a powerful foreign syndicate had just arrived in New York. Not for territory, not for money, for the Quinn's secret, and for the woman standing beside the king. The war they thought was ending had only attracted a much larger enemy.
For years, Harper wondered why Lucian chose her. The answer was simple. He never stopped. The arrival of the international syndicate should have started another war. Instead, it ended one. By the time the organization reached New York, the situation had already changed. Years of hidden records, financial secrets, and buried alliances were finally exposed. The Quinn family mystery that had haunted powerful people for decades no longer belonged to the shadows. The truth was public. And truth was difficult to control. The international syndicate quickly realized something important. The information they wanted no longer held the power it once did. Financial networks connected to the old consortium had been dismantled. Hidden accounts were frozen. Secret partnerships dissolved. The leverage that once made the Quinn legacy valuable was disappearing by the day. For the first time in decades, the secret lost its power. And without power, the conflict lost its purpose. The threat slowly collapsed beneath its own weight. What years of fear failed to accomplish, the truth completed in weeks. For Harper, the ending felt surreal. She had spent most of her life running from questions she didn't understand. Now those questions finally had answers. The burden her family carried for generations was gone. No more hiding. No more escaping. No more living in fear of shadows. The emotional weight she carried for years slowly disappeared. The healing wasn't dramatic. It was quiet, peaceful, real. Meanwhile, the Blackwood Empire entered a new chapter. The atmosphere inside the organization felt different. Advisors no longer viewed Harper as an outsider connected to a dangerous mystery. Security teams no longer saw her as someone needing protection from unknown threats. They saw her as part of the future. The change became visible everywhere. At meetings, people listened when she spoke. At events, influential figures greeted her with genuine respect. Inside the estate, she stopped feeling like a guest. She belonged. For years, Harper searched for a place where she could finally exhale. Now she found it. A safe place. Not because of walls. Not because of security systems. Because she trusted the people around her. Most importantly, she trusted Lucian. The man who spent 7 years keeping a promise. The man who transformed loyalty into love. The man who never stopped choosing her. Several months later, the Blackwood estate hosted the largest gathering in its history. Business leaders, trusted allies, advisors, and longtime members of the empire arrived from across the country. The atmosphere felt elegant, celebratory, almost royal. The private ballroom overlooking the estate gardens glowed beneath crystal chandeliers while soft music drifted through the room. Everyone knew this evening mattered. Not because of business, because of Harper Quinn. When the grand doors opened, conversation stopped. Every eye turned toward the entrance. Harper stepped inside wearing an elegant midnight blue gown that reflected the estate lights like stars against the night sky. The transformation was impossible to ignore. Gone was the woman who spent years hiding from her past. Gone was the woman afraid of becoming dependent on anyone. Gone was the woman who believed survival meant isolation. She was not a victim. She became powerful. Not through money. Not through influence. Through trust. Through healing. Through courage. The room rose to its feet. One by one. Then all at once. The gesture carried no obligation. Only respect. The queen of the Blackwood Empire had arrived. Across the ballroom, Lucian watched quietly. For perhaps the first time in his life, the king appeared completely at peace. No negotiations. No syndicate conflicts. No secrets. Only certainty. Harper crossed the room and stopped beside him. The moment felt larger than either of them. Years of silence. Years of protection. Years of loyalty. All leading here. To this. To them. The found family atmosphere surrounding the estate felt genuine. Advisors smiled. Employees celebrated. Trusted friends exchanged quiet congratulations. The empire wasn't witnessing a business announcement. It was witnessing a home being built. A future being chosen. Lucian reached into his jacket. The ballroom immediately fell silent. Heart pounding, Harper already knew. The expression in his eyes revealed everything. The ring reflected the chandelier light as he gently took her hand. The gesture wasn't about ownership. It wasn't about power. It was about a promise. The continuation of one made 7 years earlier. A promise to protect. A promise to stay. A promise to choose her every day afterward. Harper smiled through tears. And for the first time since her father's death, the future felt brighter than the past. The king had chosen his queen. The queen had chosen her king. The empire had found its future. Then the ballroom doors opened unexpectedly. A senior intelligence officer entered carrying a sealed black folder. The timing immediately felt wrong. The atmosphere shifted. Lucian accepted the report. Opened it. Read the first page. Then froze. Harper noticed instantly. The room fell silent. Because inside the file rested a single photograph. An old photograph. A face from Lucian Blackwood's past. Someone believed dead. Someone who knew every secret behind the Blackwood Empire. Someone who knew exactly why Harper Quinn mattered. And according to the intelligence report, they had just returned to New York.